Afghanistan is at the center of many ancient civilizations stretching back at least 3,000 years. Its geographical placement between the Chinese, Indian and European civilizations means that through the centuries it has attracted many outsiders and invaders as well as merchants. Control over Afghanistan has shifted from one foreign actor to another throughout history. Persians, Macedonians, Arabs, Mongols, Indian, British, Soviet Union and the United States have all conquered the area in the past 2,500 years. This is why Afghanistan is suffering from a prolonged war that destroys the entire nation. The war in Afghanistan did not start in 2001 with the U.S. invasion. It began 30 years ago in December 1979. The Soviet Union entered neighboring Afghanistan, attempting to shore up the newly established pro-Soviet regime in Kabul. In short order, nearly 100,000 Soviet soldiers took control of major cities and highways. Rebellion was swift and broad, and the Soviets dealt harshly with the Mujahideen rebels and those who supported them, leveling entire villages to deny safe havens to their enemy. Foreign support propped up the diverse group of rebels, pouring in from Iran, Pakistan, China and the United States. In the brutal 9-year conflict, an estimated 1 million civilians were killed, as well as 90,000 Mujahideen fighters, 18,000 Afghan troops and 14,500 Soviet soldiers. 5 million were forced to leave their country and became refugees. There are still 3.1 million Afghan refugees today, making up 27% of the global refugee population. Most of them live in Pakistan. Another 2 million Afghans were displaced within the country. In the 1980s, 1 out of 2 refugees in the world was an Afghan. Civil war raged after the withdrawal, setting the stage for the Taliban's takeover of the country in 1996. The United States invasion of Afghanistan occurred after the September 11 attacks in late 2001, which estimated killed 3,000 civilians. This revenge mission was supported by close U.S. allies which had officially begun the war on terror. U.S. President George W. Bush demanded that the Taliban hand over Osama bin Laden and expel al-Qaeda.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
Bin Laden was the founder of the militant Islamist organization al-Qaeda and mastermind of numerous terrorist attacks against the Israel, United States and other Western powers. He began to formulate an agenda of violent struggle against the threat of U.S. dominance in the Muslim world. He had already been wanted by the FBI since 1998. The Taliban declined to extradite him unless given what they deemed convincing evidence of his involvement in the September 11 attacks and ignored demands to shut down terrorist bases and hand over other terrorist suspects apart from bin Laden. The US and NATO rapidly drove the Taliban from power by December 17, 2001 and built military bases near major cities across the country. Most al-Qaeda and Taliban members were not captured, escaping to neighboring Pakistan or retreating to rural or remote mountainous regions during the Battle of Tora Bora. Religion has long played a paramount role in the daily life and social customs of Afghanistan. Even under the Mujahideen leaders, Afghanistan appeared to be on a course of Islamization. The sale of alcohol was banned and women were pressured to cover their heads in public and adopt traditional Muslim dress. But far more stringent practices were imposed as the Taliban enforced its Islamic code in areas under its control. These measures included banning television sets and most other forms of entertainment. Men who failed to grow beards and leave them untrimmed were fined and jailed. Full beardedness being perceived by extremists as the mark of a Muslim and little mercy was shown to convicted criminals. These and other policies were not widely popular and the Taliban was subject to reproach at home and abroad for its inability to build a national administrative structure. But in the absence of viable alternatives, most Afghans appeared to accept Taliban dictates for the more orderly society it brought. Daily life for Afghan women has changed radically. In the 1960s the wearing of a veil became voluntary, and women found employment in offices and shops. Some women also received a university education. The situation changed after 1992, however, and particularly following the Taliban's capture of Kabul in 1996. Authorities closed down girls' schools and forced women to give up employment in nearly all occupations. Strong penalties were applied against women who were not fully covered in the streets or who were found in the company of males unrelated to them. The burqa existed in Afghanistan before the Taliban's rise to power, but was not worn as frequently. The Taliban regime enforced a policy that required women to wear a burqa whenever moving outside of their home. This custom has now become the cultural norm, with the burqa worn commonly throughout all urban areas in Afghanistan. Some liberal women may prefer not to wear the burqa but still dress very conservatively and wear a head covering of some sort to avoid unwanted attention. This is especially common among Afghan women living in Western countries. Many wear a loose scarf or type of hijab that covers their hair. Consider that many Muslim Afghan women choose not to wear any head covering.
We focus on gender-based violence and discrimination against women because Afghanistan is one of the countries with the highest rates of gender-based violence in the world.
Most Afghan women are not taught how to drive in Afghanistan, and many do not have a valid driver's license living in other countries. They may be reliant on male family members for transport. Almost 2 generations of Afghan children have grown up seeing nothing but war, bombing, homelessness and hunger. They are an easy target for those who want to play Afghans against each other, through money, drugs and guns. Due to years of conflict, extreme poverty, lack of transportation, lack of access to adequate medical facilities, and malnourished mothers, Afghanistan has a high infant mortality rate and one of the lowest rates of life expectancy. Afghanistan's Human Development Index or HDI is 169. The HDI of a nation is calculated by putting together a number of factors, such as education, life expectancy, and gender equality, and nations are ranked by UNDP. According to CIA World Factbook, the life expectancy in Afghanistan is only 61 years, 60.5 for men, 62 for women, another significant improvement from the Taliban era. The United States life expectancy rate in contrast is 78 years and Japan has one of the highest at 85 years. Afghanistan also has one of the lower literacy rates in the Middle East. 52% of the male population is literate, while the female literacy rate is 24%. There have been upward trends, reflecting an improving educational system, among other factors. Only 50% of boys and about 1 in 20 girls go to school, and they typically attend only 6 years of primary school. Of this small group of students, an even smaller percentage goes on to secondary education. The education system in Afghanistan is regarded as one of the country's biggest success stories since the Taliban were driven from power. In 2001, no girls attended formal schools and there were only 1 million boys enrolled. By 2012, there were 7.8 million pupils attending school, including about 2.9 million girls. However, many schools are still operating from tents, houses and under trees. There are 180,000 teachers, only 52% meet the minimum standards required and the rest are receiving in-service training. Today Afghanistan is still living under the shadow of war. Crimes, corruption and brutalities of the fundamentalists and women are the primary and silent sacrifice of this situation. Justice doesn't exist in Afghanistan. Every sector of life in Afghanistan today is a tragedy, from women's rights to security, law and order and domination of a drug mafia. The rise of the Taliban following the withdrawal of U.S. troops in August 2021 frightens Afghans and reminds them of the darkest eras of the past.
you.